Hello and welcome to Thank You Five, a weekly show hosted by Straw Dog Theater Company, where we bring theater artists from around the globe into a conversation about live theater in the digital world with the spirit of gratitude and innovation. I am Manuel Ortiz, your host tonight. I am a Straw Dog Theater Ensemble member, a technical director, carpenter, designer, and whatever else I can fit in that sentence, artist in Chicago. And if you are watching this on YouTube, you can head over to strawdog.org/thankyou5 to join the chat, ask questions, and more importantly, vote on questions so we know which questions you want to ask our panelists. And speaking of panelists, let's meet tonight's guests. We have Michael. Michael, take it away.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Tang Tran. I use he, him pronouns. I'm an actor, director, producer. I'm currently based in New York City. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, and I've been a teaching artist with the Center of Creative Arts, COCA. I'm an arts administrator with the Repertory Theater of St. Louis. I got my BFA in acting from Webster Conservatory, and I'm about to start grad school in about 2 weeks. At NYU Tisch Grad Acting. So I'm very excited to be here and share space with these amazing artists. Do I popcorn it to someone else? Is that or is that your job?
Yeah. Who are you gonna pick, Michael? Actually, yeah, you go for it.
I'll pick Shannon.
Oh, all right. Yes. Hello, my name is Shannon O'Neill, pronouns she, her. So I hail from Carbondale, Illinois, southern part of the state. I went to college at Columbia College here in Chicago. That's what brought me to Chicago. Been here since the early 90s. And currently I'm the co-artistic director of the Factory Theater on Howard Street in Riders Park. My first play that I did with the Factory was around 1996 or 7. And I've actually been a company member with them for about 25 years, and very recently became co-artistic director. Really happy to be in that role. And my history as an artist, I went to school for acting, but about, I would say 15 years ago, really got serious about writing. And that makes sense being at the Factory Theater. We are a writers theater and producing original work ever since our conception 30 years ago, and continue to do so. So very lucky to be amongst fellow writers. Happy to be here. And I will popcorn it to...
All right, Shannon, who are you picking?
Yes, let's go, Alicia.
Well, hello, everyone. I am Ilesa Duncan, she, her, or whatever is respectful in the pronoun arena. I am a theater maker, producer, writer, director. I also went to Columbia College, Chicago, maybe a few years before you were there. And I am currently artistic director at Lifeline Theatre and also executive director at Pegasus Theatre. So yeah, do double duty. And Lifeline does primarily new work, but we are known for adapting literary works to the stage. And then Pegasus has a long history of showcasing work new to Chicago. And but we're currently in the process of the Young Playwrights Festival. So I'm thrilled to be here with everyone, and I will popcorn it to Vince.
Hey, my name is Vincent Tenenty, he, him. I've been living in Chicago since '99. Came here after my stint at Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo, and I am an actor. That's it. Tried my hand at directing. That was no good. Tried my hand at producing. That was no good. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stick to what I'm good at, and that's acting.
Fair. Well, thanks all. I'm glad to have you all here. But now that we're all met, let's start with our initial question. It's a big question, very loaded. What is theater? And I think that can be viewed as a personal reflection, as an outward reflection to the community. But yeah, I think for me, theater, and I'll say this because this is very fresh to me. I'm working with Highland Park players right now, and it's really cool to see theater with with just individuals who are just solely invested in producing a show and coming together. It's very much community theater, a for-profit company, but it's just kind of reinvigorating, because most of the time we're working with nonprofits or everyone's doing their job, but there's a different vibe when it comes to a community coming together and having that real intention of creating something for the stage. And I think that, yeah, that's kind of refreshed my memory of what theater is recently. It's been kind of nice. Yeah, we'll start there. Anyone want to join in or pop in and say, to add to that if you like?
I'm just gonna pick a single word out of what you said that I think encapsulates theater, you know. So I graduated in the middle of the worldwide panini, as the kids say. And, you know, one thing I've realized that theater, for me at least, it's not a place, right? It is people, it is community. It is community coming together to share an experience, to share truth, right? And catharsis. So in that way, theater, I guess, is anywhere an experience is shared and truth is told, be it on stage, on film, on a Zoom, right? So that's theater's people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll bounce off of that. I was raised in a fundamentalist Christian church throughout my entire childhood, and one thing that stuck out to me now that I am no longer a part of that is the fact that it was always asked, what is a church? And so many people would say it's a building, it's a brick wall, it's a roof, it's a steeple, when in actuality a church is just the community gathering together. And I think that's what theater is it can take many forms as long as it's that community coming together to storytell, whether it be true, whether it be fiction, whether it be whatever it is, that group of people that are able to come together to create and storytell, I think that's what theater is, no matter how what we're doing right now, in a way, is theater.
I like that. I think of that idea of community coming together, and that storytelling aspect is what drives us in that humanity, right? It's a place for us to have shared humanity, to share an experience together of that storytelling that somehow explains why we're here and what we're meant to do. And so and the essence of theater too is also about collaboration. And so that ultimate collaboration with everyone in the room, not just the folks on stage, but your actors, everyone who's been involved in creating that story. Feels like theater, feels like home.
Mm-hmm.
I concur with all that. As I kind of thought about that question, I was thinking about how to like answer in the most purest sense. And what I came up with was the giving and receiving of stories. And kind of it's got endless tentacles from there, but you really could feasibly have one person giving a story and one person receiving it. And I still view that as theater, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
I love the overarching theme that we're having of theater being a community engagement. Cultivation is the next word that comes from me, because in that same vein of working with Highland Park players, for me it's new, not necessarily new as I used to teach, hoping to go back to it someday, but having taught for a few years taught me something very new about myself, and taught me that theater is more than just the community. It's about the mentorship. And so now every show I do, I tend to find the youngin and kind of guide them and get away from the chaos, know what it's like to be in that chaos, but also let's check in. Let's figure out what you need. Let's figure out what the best steps forward are going to be, and let's figure out what you can pull away from this experience. And that's a kind of another thing in that community, is just the cultivating of young artists as they come in to a broad new world. Because I was in a conservatory where we couldn't really do anything outside of that conservatory. But coming out into the real world after leaving a college kind of aesthetic or world where, you know, you've got the money to do whatever you want. Then you go into storefront and you're like, that's cute. That's not how this works. It's interesting. Have you guys ever, I guess, have you ever shared that experience of mentoring our youth or young artists, I call them?
Um, I wouldn't call myself a mentor, just based on the life that I've lived. But before I start every show, and this is something I've picked up along the way, I always gather the entire cast, whatever show it is, no matter how big. We grab crew members, we grab everyone we can, and we circle up, we hold hands, and I simply say, your salvation is in the eyes of the person across the stage from you. Be honest and speak from the heart. And that's where we leave off before we make our first entrances. And this last show I just did down in Fayetteville, Arkansas with Theater Squared, there was several younger members. I think they might have been 16 or 17 that had just started in theater. And they said, thank you so much for that experience before every show to try to center us and get us ready to go on stage before every show. And they're like, is it okay if I continue to do this where I go? And I said, absolutely. And that's the whole point, is to send that message on and then have more people spread it throughout the shows that they do.
Absolutely. I mean, when I was teaching, my husband and I would come home and share martinis and talk about our day teaching, because he's still a teacher. And one of the things that we pulled away from our drunken conversations was what it means to be a teacher. And I will come back to this idea, Vincent, is this theme of, we were meant to be the people we did not have when we were kids. So it's interesting that you did that ritual, and that young artist said, that's an important ritual for me. Did you have that? Are you reflecting what you saw as a child? I didn't have anyone coming in and showing me the ropes. So for me, it has evolved into feeling that, or bearing that responsibility of, we as the older artists or older generation need to be the people we didn't have. Like, see that, Vincent, I think that makes you a mentor. Congratulations. Cheers.
No name calling here.
Hey, Manny, I've seen you in action when we've had tech. You really, I mean, you put your money where your mouth is. I've seen you take people, including myself, under your wing, kind of teach some aspects of this, that, or the other thing. You've got such a diverse skill set. But you do specifically, I've kind of watched you inhabit that teacher mindset, and it's I think as you're talking about it, and you're talking about it kind of as a responsibility that we should be conscious of. You know, we've all, some of us have been in this business for decades, right? And I think for me, I'll be the first one to admit, I think I don't realize those opportunities, just thinking everyone's been doing this, right? And we're all kind of, duplicate the production process and things like that. But to take the moment and realize we're all at different areas of this journey, right? And so I'll take the note. I should embrace those opportunities or try to identify them a little bit more readily.
And this is awesome. I think as long as I've also been a theater artist, I've also been a teaching artist. So worked in communities on the west and south side, and I also run the Young Playwrights Festival. So I'm constantly working with high school students, and so I think, and I love what you said, Vincent. So I'm gonna steal that and pass it on. But that is a way, when they're seeing when they see words that they've written be realized on stage with professional actors, that's a process for them. And I'm always just encouraging people I'm wanting them to get bitten by that bug and be part of the theater beyond. So it's like, no matter what you do, to these winning playwrights. Please keep writing. So yeah.
Yeah. I think it's crucial to understand that theater may not be the end all be all of what you do. It does not define who you are, but it does give clarity to who you are. It can evolve you, and continuing to create the work can teach you so many new things about yourself, and not just about you. I mean, Vincent, to come right back to this, is creating a church and affecting others around you, and you don't know it until, you know, down the line you see that kid you knew at 16 who's now 28 and goes, you know what, we worked together many years ago, many moons, and you did this one thing, and just so you know, I do it every show now because of you. And that's a badass feeling.
Well, it also reassures me that there is going to be a future of theater. And I know that we're kind of discussing this right now, is where is American theater and where is theater going to be in 10, 15, 20, 30 years? And with that sort of pay it forward mentality that we all have, I'm more reassured that theater will continue. Now, will it continue the same way that it has here in the past few years? Probably not. It's going to have to change. Theater is always evolving. If it didn't, we'd still be doing it in daylight, you know, on a hillside in an amphitheater. So theater always evolves. Um, and technology and what we're doing right now is advancing faster than we can. But I think in the future, these kids and the future generations are going to continue to carry on that community, that storytelling, all those things that Alicia and Shannon and Michael and you talked about, that will continue on into the future.
Absolutely. I think also in a much more sustainable way, hopefully, right? Because I also, as a teaching artist, you know, I'm teaching kids who are 8th grade into high school as well. And they are so smart. Like, they are so smart. They know what is going on with the world and they have opinions about it, right? They are able to write that down into play. But also they recognize how the American theater has also not been sustainable, right? The same ideas maybe in the past of this idea of the difference between a double pirouette and triple pirouette is a job, right? Like, that to me is that's not sustainable, right? That's toxic in a lot of ways, because that tells that you need to be a certain way. And I hope that the American theater that this generation is building is one that is much more empowering, right? To be like, hey, if you can't do a triple pirouette, that's fine. You still have a place in the American theater, be it, you know, wherever, right? There's a space for you, and we're going to hold that space for you. There's a seat at the table for you, because we're thinking about the entire room, not just the table.
Yeah. Yeah, that idea of, you know, you may not be able to do it, but you can sell it, and we're here for that.
Right.
Yeah. It's a lot to chew on.
And I guess when you're talking about kind of having these moments and with students, I guess I was thinking more youth related, but we at the Factory Theater, as I kind of think about the other side of the coin here, I guess in some way that I can say I'm sort of contributing in that way is with so we write all original shows that are written by our ensemble. So we don't kind of bring in outside plays. So the onus for the last 30 years is that the Factory has to select. We have to have writers. And sometimes the pool, we have every year there's a deadline for people to submit their plays, but you have to be an ensemble member in order to do that. And that's been a really risky kind of niche to have, because we always have to be very intentional about our kind of internal writing program and how we motivate and keep new writers writing. And I think that's where I came from, that where I had never written a play before. I kind of just felt like it was my time to contribute, and started doing it and got bit by that bug, and now am able to continue with those internal writing programs to get new writers writing so that we can increase that pool and increase the voices that are, being able to just display their stories. So in that respect, but I guess I was thinking, not that we don't have youthful company members, but we're all adults, but dipping into writing for the first time and trying to assuage those fears is something that, because I conquered mine, still always like scary, right? To write, and put yourself out there, to now really encourage, others to do that for the first time, regardless of age, right? That's kind of a way that I can come full circle and really provide that inspiration to all the company members. But yeah, so in some way I can say I've been a part of that.
Hey, I wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for the writers. So thank you.
You got it. You got it.
Yeah, that's completely true. Shannon, Kelly Girls was amazing.
Oh,
Shameless,
thanks.
shameless little plug. But yeah, I think that mentoring isn't just our youth. It's youth, quote unquote, just new individuals coming into this new aspect of their own art. They're discovering themselves. So we revert to students. We revert as young learners. And it's hard to put ourselves in a position like that when we're much older, because we kind of forget what that is and what that discipline is. But it's always kind of refreshing to realize that I don't know everything. I'm learning just as much as everyone else. I love to tell my kids, or I call them my kids, any other person who I come into conversations with, I'm like, everybody's making it up. I am making this up, literally making it up in my head. And any adult who tells you differently is lying to you. Flat out lying.
Yep.
Including this teacher, that principal,
Yep.
that AD, like we're all making it up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Michael was talking about the sustainability of theater, and I put my little hand up here, and I don't mean to talk too much, but I think he's right. As far as the sustainability, we can no longer continue the financial path that theater has been on for the past 100 years or 50 years. Unfortunately, the blue hairs here and the baby boomer generation that has largely been supporting theater is not going to be around here in the next few years. And that means a lot of donations and a lot of money is going to be gone, and it's going to go away. And we have to find new ways to fundraise, new ways to develop those dollars that grab the attention of Gen Xers, and the next, and you can name all the generations that you want, but we have to find a way to keep them interested and also keep them donating to keep the future of at least productions in spaces, going. It's a bleak future, and I'm sure Alicia has plenty of words on that, because I know she's been through those tough times of renting and finding spaces and productions and running out of money and running on short budgets. So I'll shut up now.
There's that reality of it, but there's something different. I mean, we were grappling with the what they call the shrinking of the mid-sized theater and the middle class in America before the pandemic. But after the pandemic, there's a whole nother thing, right? There's been calls for pay equity and work-life balance and those kind of things that are very important in that. But a lot of theaters are struggling to make that happen. I know that there's a desire to make it happen, and many of us are working on building that pay equity for artists because it's important. but we've also seen lots of closures in recent times, and so there's a difference. I don't know if it's just I think it's largely affecting the theater community that audiences have not come back
Yeah.
at the way that they were before the shutdown. So yeah, I think there's something to how do we attract, because I don't think bars are having that problem. Maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like it's not that they don't.
They actually are. But continue.
Okay. Well, I've seen, I feel like see people going to bars and having a good time, but there's something about being in a dark, small theater that has some people being nervous. So that is again, finding that appealing to younger generations of theater goers who may not have grown up on that, or they had limited experiences with it. And so, yeah, finding what that's going to be. But this is a daunting time for us. The creativity, I know, is flowing, but we're just in a different world. Let me say that. So it's not just our industry, certainly not. There's been shifts in most industries after the reopening, or the post-COVID, if we can say we're really officially in post-COVID. But you know what I mean? It has shifted, and it has impacted everyone in terms of what they look for, what their needs are, and how do we respond to those in the theater.
And where do you find that connection? Yeah.
Yeah, and Alicia, you've probably noticed this just in terms of foundations. I know non-equity and equity theaters really depend on grants big time to supplement revenue. And even from what I've seen since the pandemic, there's been foundations that have completely disintegrated, foundations which have merged, and then they don't give certain grants for this, that, and the other thing anymore. So that's another revenue stream that's been completely changed since the pandemic. And then also, at least at the factory, it sounds like it's certainly trending, and understandably, but that pay equity topic is the hottest topic. Something that we've been wanting to really do something about to the best of our ability, but it's a challenge to try to, that's like our biggest want, but it's our biggest challenge at the same time. Yeah.
And we have been increasing pay, but that means that we're doing less. We can't do as much theater because we really want to be to respond to artists and what the artists need, but it's going to take some time for us to balance that out. And yes, will the resources be there on the foundation corporate side of things to support it? So yeah, there may have even been more than 7 theaters that closed, of the ones that I know about.
I honestly can't keep track anymore of who is still here, or specifically in Chicago, what venues are available when, new and upcoming theaters are coming in. Where do they go? That doesn't cost an arm and a leg.
Right.
Because the game has changed. The field has changed. I mean, yeah.
I think that's where we will see these next generations of theaters start to warp that, start to figure a way around that. Whether it be in a park, whether it be on a sidewalk, whether it be wherever it is on an L platform
or digital.
Of course, digital, and that's where I personally think that's where we have to go. But I think we will always find a way to create that storytelling at the bare minimum, because that's what people want to do at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, always tell a story. However we need to tell it, let's just tell it. Yeah.
I'm really excited for that. I'm really sorry, Manny, were you gonna say something?
No, I was jumping to you, Michael. I was like, how's it like in New York? It's pretty dim over here.
Speaking of inexpensive rent.
Yeah. Funny. No. You know, being in, I took a directing class in the middle of the pandemic when I graduated. And because we weren't allowed to gather in spaces, we really had to innovate. How do we tell stories, right? I remember I did a project where I was like, let's go back to stop motion animation, right? And I acted out a scene from Gloria by Brandon Jacob Jenkins. You can find it on YouTube. It's great. I recommend it. But also people were integrating, you know, writing their own songs, writing their own materials. I think one of my friends had proposed, what if we do like a VR headset, you know, type of deal, with Facebook, you know, with Facebook coming out with Oculus and stuff like that. I know Quills Fest and OSF, you know, they're experimenting with like digital theater, and what reality means in that sense. So there's definitely already an interest. And as the technology continues to emerge, I'm very excited to see how storytelling happens, but also how training happens, especially, you know, using more technology, more multimedia.
Yes. Yes, and yes. You just hit it, I think, for me, because I've been in my head in terms of the kind of future stories that I'm beginning to write. I just finished one, but I've been working on one for a while, but I've been so interested in using tech in the show in different mediums on the stage, and how do we do that, and how do we and to me, I kind of I'm starting to, I think that, Vince, to your point, in terms of like, where is this shifting, where are we going, and kind of like thinking through that, think about our attention spans have really shifted, and we kind of like these these spurts of, you know, spectacle and things like that. And it's like, I've been very excited and welcome the sort of evolution of bringing that into storytelling and into the theater atmosphere. So I'm kind of like right on board with where you were going. I'd love to see that, but and not just like technology heavy, but like puppetry, like just using all these different mediums to tell the story. I think that's where we're, at least for me, I'm this kind of more spectacle. For me, I'm feeling more of that pow, like watching a play or a story at a theater. And I just want to, I feel like the pressure, but also obligation to give the spectacle. And it could just be me. But I'm willing to ride that ride and kind of see, you know, where the future takes, at least me with my playwriting. But I'd like to then engage other artists that are able to contribute. Though I think that's a little bit of a gap. You know, we've got writers, we've got directors, we've got actors, but
yeah, you've got puppeteers, and
yes.
Manual Cinema's been doing a lot of. Lifeline's been doing spectacle in that smaller form for a long time, but their folks have been really breaking through that with, if anybody remembers, well, there's Manual Cinema that grew out of Red Moon and folks that were doing spectacle.
God, Red Moon,
But I think there are folks that are taking it into the other realms and the more digital realms, and just like, and I agree, Michael, that then the younger folks are then looking at how do they do that. I know folks creating they're doing stories on TikTok. They're creating this in different formats. And yeah, so VR would have a place, you know, that might be places for us to look, in gaming. And but yeah, I've seen that with us, the type of stories that like Otherworld and folks like that are crossing those boundaries between experience design and theater and those kinds of things. And so the digital aspect, it certainly appeals to me. I was a film student, so I got stuck in the theater, but it's always been wanting to do all these other things. So I think this is the right time for it, but people have been making those inroads, and I think that will probably continue to grow. But what that made me think of, I'm sorry, I was making one point to make another one, isn't that sort of some of the challenge that we're having with the strike with the writers and actor strike in Hollywood is also hinges on technology too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I mean that's it's definitely there as far as like AI and what is owned by the studios and the networks and the streaming services
Mhm.
in perpetuity, but also streaming and just all of that. I'm a SAG-AFTRA member. I've been for 15, 20 years now, and those shows get streamed a billion times, and those actors on those shows get $0 for it.
Right.
So there is a way to figure it out. I'm going to go back to the digital thing. My kids, who are now teenagers and they don't talk to me anymore, used to love Roblox. I don't
Oh
know
yeah.
who
Yeah.
love Roblox,
Okay.
but I watched for a bit and I realized that that would be fascinating to end up in a Roblox world where you could go into a world that is doing a Roblox version of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, or a Roblox version of A Streetcar Named Desire, or a Roblox version of Fences, and just go into those worlds and go in and watch what you want to watch and leave when you want to leave. I find that fascinating, and you stick around for as long as you want to, and then you leave when you want to. And I think theater needs to start being okay with an in and out, with your phone out instead of in your pocket and on silent world.
Yeah.
That's where people are. People are right here within seconds. Now, maybe turn the sound off, but I want you to have your phone on so you can text in the next line that I'm going to do in this show that we're writing right now with the audience. So
Mhm.
please text in the next line. Where do you think this story should go? Or in a virtual world where you step in and you see a Roblox version of a play, or whatever it is. Or if you're in Los Angeles, but you want to watch a Steppenwolf show on stage, well, how do I do that through streaming that isn't gonna tie up a bunch of legalese problems for that theater? I think we have to grow. We have to find a way to start opening ourselves to those ideas.
Vincent, it's funny you mentioned Roblox because I think Hamilton just released like a Roblox version of
Did they
their
really?
show.
Did
I
they
think
really?
so. I think
Of
it's like a
course they did.
new collaboration, and like you can play one of, any of the characters or something like that. But
That's
that's exactly,
fantastic.
getting new audiences, right?
Yes.
And I really resonate with what you said pertaining to, it's not always phone on silent. Working in marketing, that's the question I also ask is, how do you build audiences? How do you build communities, right? Some of these people who have never been to the theater before, we don't want to be like, all right, come on in, sit down, shut up, watch, right? And I think back to Shakespeare, like I am a huge Shakespeare nerd. Back in the day, those houses were rowdy, you know what I mean? And
No
Black
microphone.
theater always has been and still is. So
exactly.
don't come to see Black theater and just sit quietly. No, you
Right.
engage.
I think
Expectation.
Dominique Morisseau, one of her rules of engagement is something that I think should be in every single playbill. Like you are
Absolutely.
allowed to, react. And I think reminding people, listen, you're allowed to, maybe not boo, but like you're allowed to disagree. You're allowed to, if something resonates with you, you're allowed to live that truth. And I think, in looking to the next generation or in audience building, which is really community building, reminding them like, listen, you bought a ticket, you are just as much part of this performance as anyone else, right? So engage.
Well, maybe the first show that do that, we'll just call it Karen's, and then we can just have all audience members fighting each other, interrupting the show.
Oh, the scandal.
Calling
Like
the
I said,
cops on the actors.
Yeah, I love that idea of integrating audience into the space. And me as a designer, I really love bringing them in, and like instead of doing it virtually, fully integrating the audience into the design and having the availability to interact, play, or visualize something. What I really love doing is making sure that an audience who sits in this side of the theater is a totally different experience than if they sat on that side of the theater.
Because it's going to make them want to come back.
Exactly. You're creating the demand again by creating different experiences, not giving the freedom of virtual reality to freely move around, but understanding that you have the availability to interact with the set, the actors, seeing something new for the first time every time you come see the show.
Yeah, it's a choose your own adventure. Those were my favorite books as a kid. It's a choose your own adventure, and that's where theater's got to go. And it's going to be where can I watch the show from now? Where can I experience this show? And and when I bring my friends, I'm going to have them sit over there, and I'm going to sit over here, and then we're going to talk about what we saw and how it was different. All those things. I am moving my hands a whole lot for a Zoom. Good God. I just saw them flying across the screen. Okay.
It's the actor in you, Vincent. It's okay. We're all telling a story.
I think also in the spirit of promoting accessibility, it's not just like where you experience the theater, but how you experience the theater. And we've been really been very intentional, as I know many theaters have been, but really exploring how to make the stories and the actors and the design of the set more accessible to those that may not experience theater in a traditional way. But so I think that there's even more positivity in terms of this exploration of how to spread the accessibility, how someone experiences it, being digital, or just how you're making those stories, how you're providing that information, and that creativity is, I think, a great thing that theaters are moving forward with and learning about, but also delivering at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. What is this is a curveball. What does accessibility look like on the stage? I mean, I've seen iterations of accessibility when it comes to space available for anyone who may not be able to freely walk through the space, visual representations like screens on stage, and what is that balance between what can be distracting for other patrons? And I don't know.
It varies. I mean, I'm sure there will continue to be changes, but for instance, we do for our kids series shows, we do a touch tour, kind of performance that is responding to kids who have who are experiencing a different type of connectivity. So they may be somewhere on the spectrum and they need a different, so we dim lights, we take them through, the actors introduce themselves and from an accessible standpoint to describe, so they describe what they're wearing, they take them on a touch tour of the space, and then everything is all the sound is brought down so it's not too loud or could create disturbance. So that might be different from an accessible show where you will see a screen there that is for folks who who experience hearing challenge, and those, and then the ability to have headsets for those who have visual challenge as well. So those are some that are now, but I imagine as it continues to grow and develop, there will be other ways to create an accessible, different types of accessibility, but that's what I think of right now.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I was kind of reference to Lifeline because I know you do the touch tours and that's really important for the community. I just think about there is the accessibility of theaters as we're talking about theaters faltering and falling. There's just, I don't know, that balance of trying to make theater as accessible as possible, accessible. Well, I said that way too fast. But dealing with the financial burden of getting TVs or having actors that have the proper language when it comes to dealing with those patrons or navigating with those patrons or talking, because that's its own battle. Yeah, I don't know.
There are resources available, at least in Chicago. There are resources through that can help theaters with becoming more accessible in that way. But yeah, other ways of accessibility. You know, is it wheelchair accessible? Is it easy to access the space? Can you, you know, are you able to get around? So there's all of those challenges if you have your own facility.
Right.
You all these theaters that have been closing, as sad as it is, you've got to also look at what was their sort of foundation that they started. A lot, I know, in the early 2000s, I know a lot of actors that just wanted to start a theater company just to be able to perform, to get their selves seen for whatever reason, agencies and whatnot. And it was all about just the performance. And as soon as it came time to, well, we need to manage this theater, we have to have an administration, we need to apply for grants, we need to do this paperwork and this paperwork and this paperwork and this paperwork. Well, then they suddenly lost interest. And so I don't know, and I'm not accusing anyone, but I don't know how much of these theaters were all about the longevity of the theater and having
But
to
some of
build
them
that.
were, Vincent. Some
Some of
were.
them were. Some of them were. You're absolutely right. It's just it's a question that has to be asked. It doesn't, maybe it doesn't have to be asked. I'm just
Oh yeah, not to shut. That wasn't shutting that down. I'm just saying
no,
that.
not at all. No, and
Yeah.
no, because there are theaters that have been around for 30 years that are still going. Maybe not striving post COVID, but they are still going and they're finding a way forward. How long has the factory been around? How long has Pegasus Players been around? I mean, they're finding a way forward. It's tough, it's hard, and they're not doing as much as they want, but they're still pushing forward, and they're finding a way. And that's what
Sometimes
they've got to find a way. Straw Dog's been around forever.
Sometimes it can be hard to face reality in the face when, you know, you're creating a performance space, you're creating a stage for yourself, your ensemble members, and then there's just grants are falling, all of these words I'm looking for. These people who are providing money for you suddenly are no longer providing money for you. There's just that reality that comes to fruition, then you've got to deal with. So yeah, I don't know.
And it could be that you know, especially the some ensemble based companies, people, they're life-changing events that happen and they move on, need to take different jobs, have children, to, you know, there's a lot of factors that happen that people make those decisions, but some of it is also that, as we were saying earlier, we're just also in a different time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
And as far as the writing is concerned, I think we have a solid future for writing, but I think coming out of COVID, it was a rush to produce plays that were not vetted, that were not that were not looked at closely enough to say, is this a good story? Is this a solid story to be told, or are we just throwing it up on stage to get it told? And people are just like, it wasn't solid. A lot of different questions, but I have high hopes for theater in the future, but we do need to evolve.
Agreed. I mean, we have about 5 minutes, and I think that idea of evolution and what a theater may take to evolve. I have two questions. It can be very short, but what do you think it may, outside of technology, as we've been talking about, what do you think it might take for theaters to evolve in this new age? Yeah, I feel like there's more, but I'm going to end that statement there.
I think my humble opinion is that I see more potential for theaters to collaborate on maybe kind of co-produced shows and help each other. And maybe it's neighborhood theaters that are in kind of a similar neighborhood, so you're not sort of cannibalizing the audience maybe in that neighborhood, but that you're kind of helping by kind of focusing and kind of helping support a particular slot in the season. May be one way to kind of collectively support each other, but also not cannibalize, again, like just all the neighborhood folks that come in. We have a lot of Rogers Park residents that come into the Factory Theater. And Ilesha, we've got, you know, the behemoth Lifeline, you know, to contend with in terms of just neighborhood. And you know, in terms of Rogers Park, Theo is down the street. Granted, they do cabaret and it's kind of a different styles, but we're also talking about people that, you know, we're all doing plays at the same time, so we may only get that one Rogers Park resident to do like their one theater night out, you know, at one of our. So anyway, just maybe that's where I went initially, with some way that we could collectively support each other.
Cool.
I think we need giant risk takers. I think we need giant risk takers in production, in financing. I think we need someone to just jump up and say, not someone, but a lot of people to get together. I love the co-production idea, but say, hey, this is the future of theater, or this is where we think theater is going, and just do something outlandish and put it out there and get people's attention to go, what? And then all of a sudden, it's the way our media and it works. Is just one thing has got to grab that lightning in a bottle, and then everybody is going to start doing it. And I think that's what we need. It's just someone who's afraid to step out of that box, that normal, well, this is how things work when you do theater, and just try something crazy. Try something super crazy, and maybe it breaks some rules, and maybe it you know, ruffles some feathers, but I think that's what we need to break out of where we are now.
Cool.
And yeah, I think folks have been, I say yes to all of that. Folks have been doing I've seen more co-productions bringing up, and maybe there'll be more co-productions between smaller companies and larger companies, or those who, around the type of work that you do, if you're doing similar kinds of work, or you have something interesting you want to explore. And so I think there's all kinds of possibilities. And that, yeah, taking some risk, but also cultivating that resource to see us through, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm gonna double down on what I said at the beginning in terms of community. I look at theater companies here in not here in St. Louis, but back in St. Louis, where theater is taken into the communities, right? I think of St. Louis Shakespeare Festival that go on tour, right? That for free. You show up, you know, you can get a performance for free, right? And I'm also involved with this organization called the Action Art Collaborative here in St. Louis, that tells stories about St. Louis, for St. Louis, by St. Louis, right? And what I have seen is that people are going to give money to causes that they believe in. And what we have seen is that what we sort of look to when producing this play is, what do community organizers do, right? When they're raising awareness about an issue, they go to the people to fund,
door to door,
you know, their mission, right? And I think that might be the future of the theater in terms of at least a good chunk, you know, that new donation base. What do you believe in so much that you're willing to give money to, right? And the Action Art Collaborative, our first show, it was a story about St. Louis and this amazing activist named Percy Green. We sold out all 4 nights, you know what I mean? And we got so much money because people were like, yes, we believe in this work. We want to see more work like this. So that's I think, so I'm gonna double down and say community. I look also at St. Louis Shakespeare Festival that go into communities and write original plays. to cultivate, St. Louis is such a diverse city. I know we're at time, I want to be cognizant of time. But recently, I think they went into this Bosnian neighborhood, I think, I could be wrong. And they commissioned a playwright to sort of go around and interview people about their experience and how they came to St. Louis. And they told the story in the heart of the community. And it was a story that people loved and they resonate with. So
I think that's
doubling
awesome,
down,
Michael. And double down. I think that's awesome what you said. But some of the theaters that I know of in Chicago, that's how they started 50 years ago.
50
They
years ago.
did that
Yep.
exact thing. So some of it is
Which is right.
returning to
Yeah,
absolutely.
what is that it starts with building community in your community and where
Absolutely.
your theater is.
absolutely.
Yes.
I'll finish with this. Missouri has 2 major cities, and they both look like they're trying to get them out of the state. Sorry, Michael, I love you, but I can't stand St. Louis.
It's okay. I can't stand the Cubs, so
Okay,
It
let's calm it down. Born and raised in Chicago. Okay, Shannon's with me too. Well, thank you guys. I've got one more question. Say my goodbyes, and then we're gonna end with this question. And it's a lot to think about. We didn't prep for this, but I always like to ask, what is one book that you might recommend for young artists to read in your field, not in your field, in relation to theater, maybe slightly not related to theater, but really teaches you a lot about yourself that's really helpful in the theater? I'm going to start, then we'll do our outro, and then I'll jump right back in and give you some time to think about this. Chew on this. Mine is, of course, can never go wrong, literally, you can't, come on, there it goes. The Backstage Handbook. I have it just sits right above my desk, right up there, just in case I have a question. I always like to just reference. It's a great reference for young technical theater artists, designers. It's just really good to have on hand. But we're going to go ahead and just give our big shout out thank yous. Thank you to all of our excellent panelists who are here with us tonight. Ilesa, thank you for joining us from Hogwarts. I know the Hufflepuff common room, really shitty Wi-Fi, but it's great to have you. Thank you.
That's the restricted section.
Kyle for creating and producing the show. Yay, Kyle! He can't see us. Woo! Give a round of applause. And thank you to OfficeHours.Global, Edwin Ruiz, and Mondo Machine. Thank You 5 is made possible by Straw Dog Theater Company ensemble members. Straw Dog is run on a free theater model where our productions are available to anyone and everyone. And we can only do this with generous donations from our community. And you can find more information about donating or becoming a Straw Dog member and helping to continuously support our work. We'll see you next week for another conversation about theater. And please submit your questions. If you want to have a friend, you got a friend that you might recommend to join our conversations, please reach out to strawdog.org and the Thank You 5 page. Thank you for watching, and let's jump right in. Michael, what you got? What book?
I have it right here. Okay. I don't know if it's like an easy read. I don't know what the reading level is, but I've been reading this book called Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Marie Brown, which looks at patterns in nature to how we can, how we can adapt that to our leadership models. So it's highly recommend. Read this book. It's great.
Thank you. Shannon, what you got?
Yep, I just Googled it because I have nothing.
Okay.
And one of the best ones that came up is A Director Prepares.
Oh,
seven,
yeah.
7 essays on art and theater. So there you go.
Who's that author on Director Prepares?
Anne Bogart.
Yes. Cool.
I actually have that book.
Yeah, same. Vincent?
Two books. I'm gonna give a shout out to Studs Terkel. Pretty much anything by Studs Terkel, you're gonna learn how to be a human being. You're gonna learn that there are a lot more people in this world than just you. And then the second book is The War of Art.
Cool. Ilesa, could you pick one from behind you and just one?
So there's one back there that says backwards and forwards. I forget the author's name. And then Underground Railroad. Read that.
Nice. Well, thank you all for joining us, and thank you 5.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you 5.